Hello everyone, Stjepan here. I'm going to cover one game outside of my normal series, which I'm doing at the moment, to honor the Croatian football team that's playing the finals of the World Championship, World Cup today. And we are playing against the French team, as you probably most of you may know already. So Croatia is playing France today at 5 p.m. Croatian time. And for that occasion, I decided to cover one game in which the best Croatian player has defeated one of the best French players of all time. And the Croatian player is Šarić. He's the under-18 European champion in 2007, under-18 world champion in 2008. He became the grandmaster sometime around then. He is a four-time Croatian champion. This year he won the European individual championship, so definitely one of the best players in Croatia of all time, if not the best, objectively. He's rated about 2700 at the moment, a bit less, so definitely a great Croatian chess player. And in this game he faced Étienne Bacrot, who is one of the best French players. And he used to have a very steep rise in the 2000s. He was in the world's top 10, rated above 2700 for a while now, but he never managed to become the world champion or to get a chance to become the world champion. So with Maxime Vachier-Legrave, definitely the best French player ever. And this game was played in the Bundesliga last year, 2017 to 2018. In fact, I believe it was played this year, but in the second part of the season, 2017-18. And even Šarić had the white pieces. So to honor the clash between Croatia and France today in the finals of the Football World Cup, I'm going to be covering this game, and I hope you enjoy it. It was a great tactical game by Ivan Šarić. So he opened with pawn to e4, we have e5, knight f3, knight to c6, bishop to b5, the Roy Lopez, and Étienne Bacrot plays knight to f6, the Berlin defense. And now Ivan Šarić doesn't go for a normal Berlin endgame with the queen exchange. He plays d3, trying to get perhaps a more fighting position for white in which the queens don't get exchanged, even though the main line is slightly better for white. But this position is perfectly playable, and it has been played on the top level for a while now. Now to this, the main move is bishop to c5. Here white, Ivan Šarić, didn't play the main move. The main moves are either c3, after which both sides should castle, or after bishop to c5 to simply take on c6 and double black's pawns. After bishop to c5, though, he played knight b to d2, which is slightly less common and slightly worse for white, perhaps trying to get out of the mainline theory. We have d6 by Étienne Bacrot, c3, now both sides castle, and we have knight to e7, which is a rare move, but I think a very good move for black, and in this position black has already equalized. The two most common moves from here are either bishop to b6 or a6, chasing the bishop away and forcing it to take on c6, and after this black does have doubled c-pawns, and white is aiming for the central d4 break. But after castles, knight to e7 is played, simply depriving white of the possibility of doubling black's pawns along the c-file. Now we have d4, seizing the opportunity to get the central break in the position. E takes d4, of course c takes d4, not taking with the knight, you want more central control. The bishop retreats to b6, and now rook to e1. And this is still theory. This has been played on top level about 50 times, well, it's a known position, but I think it's wise of Šarić to have gone for this position and not the Berlin endgame or some other variation of the Berlin. Then we have bishop to g4, you have to play h3, chasing the bishop to h5, and now a4, and in some positions threatening to now play a5, trapping the bishop. Perhaps it doesn't really work yet, because to a5 black could have a6, attacking the white bishop on b5, but it's a dangerous possibility. Now we have a6 immediately, just resolving the tension immediately. Now the bishop retreats to f1. Any other square is, I think, less good. Perhaps bishop to c4 could have been played, but this way white is reinforcing the dangerous squares around his king and giving his king a lot more protection. Now here Étienne Bacrot makes a mistake. He played bishop to g6, which isn't really such a good move. What he should have played after bishop f1 is knight to c6, just getting the knight back to the center and using the fact that the bishop has moved and now it's no longer threatening to take on c6. Now to this, Šarić would probably play a5. And here, I was looking at one possibility for black to grab a pawn, and it actually does work, but the engines say that black is better here. And now knight takes a5 is better for white, but black gets away with taking a pawn. To this, black should simply retreat the bishop to a7 according to the engines and still be better. But after knight takes a5, d5, just depriving the black knight from the c6 square, c5, b3, rook to e8, bishop to b2, bishop to c7, bishop to c3 would be a useless move because the knight is now defended twice, and black has managed to grab a pawn, but it's really been played badly for white, and I was just looking at the positions in which white could punish that, and white really can't. So black could have taken a pawn and gone away with it, but he didn't. So bishop to f1, bishop to g6 was played, which is a bad move. And now we have a5 anyway, bishop a7, rook to a4, getting the rook into the center of the board, defending the fourth rank laterally, knight to c6, d5, chasing the knight away, and now knight to b8. I think that knight to e5 could have been played because the e5 pawn would have then defended a lot of key squares, but perhaps the pawn would have been too weak after a move such as knight to c4, immediately attacking. So knight to b8 is safer, but I think this is now better for white, and the engines in fact give it as +1 for white. Knight to h4, attacking the misplaced bishop on g6, knight b to d7, knight d to f3, and you can understand what Bacrot wanted to get. He wanted to challenge the e5 square, but after knight to f3 and the fact that knight to c5 can't really be played because of b4, the knight has just wasted a lot of time. Now we have rook to e8, another inaccurate move. Knight takes g6, depriving the black of the bishop pair. H takes g6, and now rook to c4, putting pressure on the c7 square, which was a mistake. Now, this is +1 for white. After rook to c4, it seems that black has managed to equalize. The best move in this position, instead of rook to c4, was bishop to g5. And after bishop to g5, knight to e5, rook to b4, knight takes f3, queen takes f3, rook to b8. White is a lot better because he has pressure on the f6 square, pressure on the b7 square. The bishop is in some positions even threatening to take on a6. The e4 pawn is sufficiently defended, the knight is pinned anyway, and white is preparing to play the move e5, breaking through the position and getting a lot of central control. But after h takes g6, rook takes c4, he allowed Bacrot to get back into the game. Now b5 was played. This you have to take en passant, a b6, bishop takes b6 is a horrible mistake. He should have taken with the knight, because the knight doesn't really have any more useful squares, and you also gain a tempo on the rook. So now after bishop takes b6, white is once again much better. Queen to c2, putting more pressure on the c7 pawn, a5, b3, just not allowing the move a4 to be played, bishop to c5, e5. Now this is the beginning of white's aggressive play. Now the move e5 can't really be played if you think about it, because black has 3 defenders. Okay, so the knight, the rook, and the pawn. But for now the pawn can't take because the bishop is hanging. So the move bishop to c5 was in fact a mistake. Now if the bishop had remained on the b6 square, then e5 couldn't have been played. But now after e5, we have knight takes d5, grabbing a free pawn because e5 undefended the d5 pawn. But this is for huge compensation. Now we have knight takes d5, bishop to g5, gaining a tempo on the queen. And now the point of the tactic, the point of the pawn sacrifice. Queen to b8, and now immediately e6. You can see that the queen on c2 is eyeing the pawn on g6. So the move e6 is forcing the f pawn to make a decision, and now simply weakening the g6 pawn. Now we have rook takes e6, rook takes e6, f takes e6, queen takes g6. And now the position around black's king is getting more and more dangerous, and Šarić's tactic definitely worked. He sacrificed the pawn, but for so much activity that from a human perspective, this position is really hard to defend for black. You can see that the rook has access to the g4 square, which is immediately double attacking the weak g7 pawn. At the same time, the bishop could go either to h6 or to f6 to attack here because the pawn is pinned. And the knight could get into the game then via g5 or via h4. So a very strong attacking position for white, not to mention the fact that the bishop can get to d3 and double attack the h7 square. So a very dangerous position for black. Étienne Bacrot reacts with knight to f8, chasing the queen away. We have queen to c2, defending the b3 pawn. Knight to b4, which is once again a mistake. The best move here, the position is still pretty much equal according to the agency if black plays perfectly, is the move rook to a7, laterally defending the g7 pawn. So preparing to play a move such as c6 to defend here. But after a knight to b4 gaining a useless tempo on the queen, we have queen to b2, now attacking g7, queen to e8, rook to g4, preparing to double attack the g7 square, queen to f7, defending in advance, bishop to h6. Now triple attacking and making it really hard to defend. Now you can of course play the move knight to g6, which Étienne Bacrot did play. That was the only move. Now you can see that had the rook been developed to a7, then a move such as c6 would simply defend and save black. So that's why rook to a7 should have been played instead of the useless knight to b4. And now Šarić simply continues with h4. Now h4 of course is hanging the bishop, but if black takes the bishop, then h5 simply takes the knight because it will be double attacked and pinned to the king. Now instead of h4 I was looking at one more move after knight to g6, which is brilliant, but Šarić perhaps missed it, perhaps thought that h4, h5 is strong enough. The move is bishop takes g7, and after queen takes g7, not of course exchanging the queens, but the move queen to b1, double attacking the knight, king to f7 is the only defense, knight g5 check, king f6, knight e6. Now if the king takes, of course you take here, you take the queen. So now bishop takes f2 would be the best move, king takes f2, queen to h6, and knight to d4, and black's king is in a lot of trouble. So this is checkmate, game over. But after knight to h6, Šarić played h4, which is another great move. Now g takes h6, Bacrot takes the knight, h5, takes the bishop, sorry, h5 preparing to recapture the piece, rook to f8, king to h1, a very safe move, a brilliant move, which not many weaker players would think of, simply depriving black of the possibility to capture here with check. Now after king to h1, the knight is still capturable. White can still regain a piece, so he was in no rush to take the knight immediately. Now we have e5, now once again not taking the knight, but bishop to c4, getting another attacker into play. d5, attacking the bishop, and now rook takes g6 check, king to h7, and now queen to e5, letting the bishop go, and the bishop really shouldn't be taken. You can see why now. If dc4, then queen takes c5 is enough, just getting the piece back. So after queen takes c5, Bacrot played rook to e8. And now after rook to e8, another brilliant idea, just exchanging everything into a winning endgame and exchange up. So he plays rook to f6, and in this position Bacrot really does have to exchange the queens. So we have rook e5, rook f7 check, we check. So now after king to g8, knight takes e5 defending the rook, and now you can see that after black recaptures the piece, dc4, Šarić has a rook for the bishop, so this is a winning endgame. After b takes c4, just going a pawn up as well, this position is completely winning. So he managed to get a brilliant attacking setup with a simple pawn sacrifice with e5, just letting black take central control, take the d5 pawn, and seemingly go material up. But it was for so much compensation that even a player of Bacrot's caliber couldn't manage that position. Now this is soon to be over. We have bishop d4 attacking the knight. Rook to f5, of course, if you move the knight, the rook is loose, so you have to defend with the rook. a4, threatening to get a dangerous passed pawn, but it will really take a few more moves before the pawn becomes dangerous. Knight to f3, gaining a tempo on the bishop. Bishop b2, rook to a5, now preparing to capture the pawn if need be. a3, knight to d2, knight to d3, knight to b1. And now this is it. This is game over. And Bacrot played knight takes f2, and after king to g1 he resigned. Now he can either lose the pawn because it's attacked twice, or he can lose the knight and the position is just busted. So okay, yeah, I believe that this is a remarkable display of how to face the Berlin defense, and this idea that Šarić found. Wait, let me get to this position. How he managed to get a lot of central control, and he managed to be better on the queen side. On the king side, he managed to get the bishop pair, and he managed to get a lot of central control, which he managed to use afterwards. Here, after queen to c2, a5, b3, bishop to c5, which was a mistake, using the only opportunity to play the move e5, weakening black's center, and using the fact that the bishop is loose. Of course, it's not loose; it's defended by the knight, but it's two pieces for the rook, which is much better for white, of course. I believe this was a great game, and a great display of how strong Ivan Šarić is, and I hope that he could. Well, I think he will get into the world's top 10 in a year or so, in a few years at least, and that he could challenge the world's best for the title. So okay, thanks very much for watching. I hope you got something from this game, especially if you play e4 or if you play the Berlin defense with black. And yeah, enjoy the game today. I hope Croatia wins. If you are French, I'm sorry, but I think we are going to win. And have a nice time watching the game. Thanks very much for watching, and see you soon for more chess. Stay tuned for more chess. See you later. Bye.